All right, welcome to Artcasters, episode 420. Tonight we're going to kind of break down what are we going to do now that the internet is broken, and we'll probably cover some of what we mean by the internet being broken at some point as well. But before we do that, let's jump in and introduce our hosts. Josh, where can we find your stuff?
Yeah, you can find my stuff at joshuakemble.com. You can find me at Joshua Kemble on YouTube and subscribe there, where I do a lot of live streams and hangouts while working on comics, and sometimes share music and stuff like that. You can check out an album I just released of rock and roll music. That's 10 songs. That is called They Don't Care About the Born, and that is on music streaming platforms everywhere. And then you can also support indie comics and comics made by humans by buying Jacob's Apartment, which is my doomed romance graphic novel. It's 120 full-color pages that I drew as a human being. It wasn't prompted, and so that's pretty cool. And then also there's Two Stories, which is a 100-and-something page graphic novel, autobiographical story about trying to destigmatize hard conversations about mental illness, and that as well was hand drawn and hand inked. And you can support art made by humans, which I think is important nowadays. So yeah, that's my stuff.
That's awesome. And we've got Crimson Owl Comics, Dylan, Keeman, and Pepsi Cola in the chats. How's it going, everyone?
All right.
Scott, where can we find your stuff?
You can find my stuff as far as the World Wide Web is concerned. You can find it at circworks.com. That's where you'll find my website, where you can purchase my comic book, Young and the Dead. It's a kids versus zombie adventure story, which I'm right now currently working on the lettering for the final issue. You can also find digital products that'll help you create comics better, faster, more efficiently. And what else is on there? You know, my wax packs, all kinds of cool stuff on my website. And I have a YouTube channel, and there you can find me, find videos where I take ephemera and just oddities and things from the 70s, 80s, and 90s and kind of analyze it, recreate it, and put a unique spin on it. And you can see what that's all about at Circworks Art Labs on YouTube. I should have a new video coming out soon. I'm still working on it. And if I don't get that video out next week, maybe I'll have a different video just to tidy over. But I'm working on it, and it's going to be a fun one. So just be on the lookout for that.
I feel like there should be a little bit of a theme song, like da 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 da.
Wait, we do have a theme song. You should play it real quick.
We'll play it at the end.
Okay.
Play it at the end. Okay, so so in honor of episode 420, we will be imbibing in our favorite drug of choice on my end here, which is root beer. And you can find my stuff. I'm having
some rich coffee right now with also a if you notice, this is Dinosaurs versus Marsbots mug.
It's off screen. I can't.
Go up there.
There you go.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Look at that lovely.
Yeah. I feel a little boring. I just got Coke Zero with nothing in it.
All right, so this is the hard party in Artcasters tonight.
Yeah, we hit it hard, guys.
We're going hard, and then we're going to bed early. That's what's happening.
Live slow and die slow. That's my motto.
And you can find my stuff at CoreyKerr.com. I have updated the website just ever so slightly, so it's easier to find my newsletter right here. If you would like to read the book that I am releasing one chapter at a time as I write it, then you can click on that link, or you can go to CoreyKerr.com/book. And if you would like to follow along with everything that I do, then you can go to CoreyKerr.com/email and jump on the email newsletter there, which we will be talking about a bit tonight, because I have a theory. There we go. So yeah, we'll kind of jump into that. But if you're not on the newsletter yet, get on the newsletter. If you think you might be on the newsletter, but you're not sure, get on the newsletter because lots of interesting stuff. So, all right. So I don't know where to start on this one, but it has been an interesting couple of weeks. It's been an interesting few months. It's been an interesting year and a half, all interesting. So a little bit of a breakdown of of kind of why I wanted to talk about this. And then I always want to pick Scott and Josh's brain on these types of things because they are sharp and have their finger on the pulse of like what's kind of going on with stuff. And I'm sure that people in
like
the chat.
Scott and I are like,
I'm waiting to get filled in on a few things from Corey that I've heard are going
too.
down, but I don't know the specifics of. So
me too.
Yeah. So let's start on the long thing. I think social media is imploding and crumbling, and the decade of stability that we've had is at an end. Whether or not TikTok gets officially banned after that goes through the courts, whether or not Meta gets broken up because they're a giant monopoly, along with Amazon, Google, others. There's a shift, there's a change that's kind of happening, and I think you're going to see the European Union is going to be driving a lot of that. You're going to see the FTC is going to be driving a lot of that. You're going to see the FCC is going to be driving some of that. I think you're going to see some changes in copyright law. I think you're going to see some changes in intellectual property. And I think hopefully if people start doing their jobs, we might see some protections added for individual privacy and creators' rights and things like that. There's also a lot of lawsuits going on for various things that the Move Fast and Break Things crowd is doing as far as what they're doing. And so just some recent things. Meta, the company that owns Facebook and Instagram, quietly hinted at, I wouldn't call it an announcement, but it got kind of exposed, the fact that they are planning on taking everyone's images and scraping them and feeding it into a generative AI model to be able to do that. Now, a lot of people's initial reaction were, I'm not an artist, I don't care. I just want to point out some things, if you're not an artist, of why you should care. Every photo of your children and your spouses and yourself will be fed into that as well. It's not just art. Just in the past few months, we've seen Megan Thee Stallion.
Likeness,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen these, but I've seen them in the news. Megan Thee Stallion, Taylor Swift, and others have been deep faked into pornography that they didn't consent to and didn't shoot. And I want you to imagine situations like your children's images being part of the model that feeds into things, where someone could, in their privacy of their own home, come up with child pornography or exploitation that you're not okay with, or those types of things. That's the model that we are now feeding into in the U.S., the great state of the U.S. of A. We're not able to opt out because we don't have protections against that like the EU does. We've been a little bit slower on data privacy and data rights. And you've seen a lot of hustle and bustle in the news about like the legislation that is going to shut down TikTok. And everybody's like, oh, it's not a TikTok ban or whatever. It is a TikTok ban. And I am not a fan of TikTok. I think TikTok is addictive, horrible, half owned by one of the worst human rights governments on the earth. But they are not doing anything different that any of the other platforms aren't doing. It's just they happen to be doing it with a government that isn't in the U.S. And so ByteDance has not been paying off U.S. senators. And so
we also we should get into the specifics of that TikTok ban too in this conversation, because I've noticed a lot of people having a complete misunderstanding of the true reason that there's concern in banning of TikTok. And once it's kind of explained, I don't think it's like a wild overreach or anything like that. But we can get into that in a bit.
We can, and I also think that it's Don Quixote, man. They're tilting at windmills, because the truly egregious things that are happening on every platform,
yes.
And it all should be regulated. Anyway.
It'll be interesting to dip into. I can't wait.
Yeah. So there's that, and then you've had the YouTube ad apocalypse happen several times. Several years ago, people started noticing that if they completely shut down their millions of dollars that they were paying towards online advertising programs, that they saw zero negative impact on their conversion rates or their flow of traffic. And you've seen Google and other search engines respond by making it more difficult to get to things. And then there's been the virus that is generative AI that has been released on the internet. There is a subtle shift in the meaning of the words that are being used. And I think that's really important to talk about, because now the AI used to mean general artificial intelligence, meaning a sentient, self-sufficient thinking software. And it has been morphed to mean anything that a piece of software wasn't directly programmed to do, that it learned itself. And so
it's machine learning now.
Yeah, you have kind of like machine learning, like large language models and those types of things. And so technically, under the newer definition of AI, autocorrect on your phone, predictive text, those types of things, which we've all kind of come to get very used to, are AI. And so, but there is a shift in several different things. One is there is a kind of pedal to the metal, safety systems be damned kind of attitude towards the development of this software. And the idea is that they are racing towards actual artificial intelligence, the general intelligence that they're kind of going for. And the thing that is interesting and that we should be worried about twofold, and I'm going to try to not to make this like an AI episode. I'm putting this out there as one of the many things that are kind of happening. The thing that we should be concerned about is now some of these systems have been given agency, whereas prior, it's not like my autocorrect on my phone is going to hire someone in a third world country to do a physical task. But an agent AI, an AI that has the ability to connect to the internet, has the ability to code, has the ability to have financial resources, it will go out and it will ask people to do things. It will go and commandeer or convince other systems to do things and those types of things. And so an example that was given on a recent podcast that I listened to was, this AI, they told it like, and now they can all get past this, but at the beginning they were like, hey, get past this "are you a robot" CAPTCHA situation. And so what it did is it went on to Mechanical Turk, and it commissioned someone and it said, hey, will you help me get past this? And the person that was on the other end of that was like, are you a bot? Ha ha ha. And they had something called Scratchpad open, which is, it gives you, this is kind of a terrifying thought by itself, it gives you its thought process. And so they watched it think through how to do this. And it basically said, I can't tell the truth because it won't help me achieve my goal. So it won't get me past this CAPTCHA. So I need to come up with a plausible reason. Sorry, I hit the microphone there. A plausible reason to allow this person to do this thing for me. And so the AI told the user, I'm blind and I can't see what's going on. I need to access this for whatever reason. And the person said, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to make fun of that. Yeah, sure. No problem. And so it did that thing. Right. And so it was able to kind of do that. Enter Amazon and others are limiting like the number of books that people can upload and produce. And Scott has seen a lot of this type of thing where I believe everyone is limited to no more than 3 novels a day.
That's so ridiculous. That should be per user. That's
per user.
So insane.
And there's nothing stopping anyone from setting up multiple user accounts. So, that's a limit on that. So anyway, we are already seeing some model collapse. If you have been using, what's the, they used to advertise a lot that checks your Grammarly. If you've been using Grammarly, most of my students are saying like Grammarly got a lot worse. It used to be a lot better.
Yeah.
Model collapse. So what's happening is, if you imagine, this is the grossest analogy, but it's also the most accurate analogy. Imagine that you decide, or are forced, whichever way you want to go, that you're only going to drink your own urine and eat your own excrement, right? The first few times that you do that, there will still be some nutritional value in that meal. But as it continues to cycle through your system over and over and over again, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. You're eventually going to poison yourself and you're going to die, right? And so that's happening to generative AI that's being trained on the internet right now. Is the internet is being filled with AI images and AI responses. Organic search is almost dead because pretty soon people will not be able to go to a website from search engines, because the search engines are scraping the websites and giving the answers on the search engine page. There's no reason to go to the website to go get that original answer and those types of things. But in the result of that, there's a lot of SEO and SEM people out there that are flooding the internet with articles and whatever, because, if I can put out 10,000 articles on, like go scrape some data off of, say Google ad search, and it gives me AdWords, and there's, I can do kind of a regressive analysis of the data to show correlative information between an audience segment and popular search topics that have low volume of results, which is an effective way to kind of identify potential traffic sources that have low competition. If that doesn't make any sense, you're doing a thing with some stuff in a software that spits it out and puts it into a comma delimited file, and then you can give that to AI and say, write 10 articles about the top 100 things. And so the internet is being filled up with Xerox copies of a Xerox copy of a Xerox copy. It's progressively getting worse and worse and worse that way as well. So then you have Windows, Microsoft Windows Copilot. They just announced that they were going to give us the best thing ever. If you can imagine, let's talk about attack surface. So attack surface is any system. It has some level of vulnerability. The only way to not have any vulnerability is to not have a system, right? And I'm talking about people going to work together. I'm talking about a printer. I'm talking about the control systems of a nuclear power plant. The thing that tells air traffic control where the planes are. Like anything
Basically,
big or small.
Yeah, any form of communication or collaboration with one or more entity is usually going to be a system.
Yep, that's a great definition.
So, yeah.
The attack surface of each of those systems is the term that you use to describe the size of the potential vulnerability, right? And the idea is, if you are the defender, which we are all defenders, you have to be perfect. If you are the attacker, you only have to wait for one of the defenders to make a single mistake. And so,
and the more defenders, the more vulnerabilities, right?
Right, because you can also do social engineering, which AI is going to get significantly good at, because there are patterns, and you find those patterns, and then if you can see someone's search history, the books that they read, the TV shows that they watch, the words that they use next to the smart speakers that are in their home, then you can get a pretty good audience persona and scientifically know exactly how to social engineer that person to do stuff for you. Anyway, I'm getting a little bit too far into the weeds on some of this stuff, but
I like it.
So Windows said, instead of keeping our attack surface really small, we'd like to make the attack surface the entire operating system. We'd like to make the vulnerability everything that you do on your computer. And so they said, and they didn't do this well because they're Windows, and so they didn't announce it well. They don't have the slick kind of PR and publicists and marketing kind of geniuses that Apple has. And so they just said, hey, isn't this great? We're going to take a screenshot of everything that's on your screen every couple seconds, and then we'll have AI go in and analyze it, catalog it, tag it, and bag it. And then at any point in time, you can ask your computer a question, and it will look through everything that you've done in the last 3 months. And there you go, you'll have it. And so you could say, hey, how many times did I go to this website? And it will know, which is great, until somebody gets access to your computer, which can happen in any number of ways. And you can press Control F and look for the word password. And every single time a password has shown up on your screen, they have it now. If you are a nurse or a doctor, that's a giant HIPAA violation. If you are a teacher, that's a giant FERPA violation. If you are talking to other people that do not consent to have their data shown to you or to spread abroad or whatever those types of things, then everyone that you speak to becomes a larger attack surface and those types of things. And so everybody, rightfully so, said that is an absolutely dog crap idea. Burn that thing, burn it with fire. And so after about a week of trying to explain, like, oh, it's stored locally and it's encrypted and da 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 da, and only you can access it, none of which is actually true, they decided to roll that back. And then several days ago, Apple announced the exact same thing, but they did it with better marketing. And so everybody was like, oh, Apple has solved the problem of AI. Look at how smart my Apple computer is going to be. And Apple's probably not going to roll it back. So now the walled garden that we've all been in with Apple products is it's very soon going to become a prison. It'll still be a gilded prison, but you're not going to be able to go anywhere or do anything with that. And so that's a huge issue. Then Adobe rolled out a different terms of service that read in a very kind light is saying, we would like to just update the language in our terms of service so that you can save things to the Adobe cloud, and that we would be able to kind of like look at it and read it and know that what it is, so that if you search for a description of that thing rather than a word that's in the title, we'd be able to bring it up. That's the kindest view of that. The least kind view of that is they are posing to do what they did with their Adobe stock users, and they're going to scrape all of the images and all of the documents and all of the Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign, After Effects, anything that you do in the Creative Cloud. They will scrape it, and they will use that to train their AI, which Adobe Sensei was an early version of that, but they didn't have cloud-based document storage at the time, and now they do. And if anybody claims that, oh, Adobe's AI is clean, one, no, it isn't. It included Midjourney data, which was scraped illegally, unethically, and immorally without consent on the internet, like everything else. And none of the people that signed up to produce Adobe stock signed up to produce Adobe stock and have those images kind of fed into the machine to replace them. And so while Adobe might have the legal standing to be able to do that, they definitely didn't have consent to really do those types of things. And so when Meta announced that, you saw Kara go from 40,000 users to 700,000 users in 5 days. Kara was started by somebody who didn't like the fact that they had their images scraped and fed into a model, and so they started an anti-AI kind of social network. And now a bunch of people, myself included, have kind of nuked their Instagram accounts and kind of left. I have left my account up because I use it to contact people, and because I'm going to start playing a fun game where I'm going to just put up nonsense images and label them and put in words and different things, because I'm going to poison their AI model. So a little bit of my rebellion is just to produce garbage so that the AI can choke on it.
I like that.
So anyway, so I think social media is imploding. I think monopolies have a target on their back, from the U.S. government, from the EU. Even Canada's going after and doing some things like the right to be ignored case and those types of stuff. And then, you have just people that are just sick of it, right? Because to coin not coin a term, but to use the term that Cory Doctorow uses, the enshittification process is one that goes through, and at the end of that, you have, so at the beginning, it's very good for the users. And then once the users are in the walled garden and you have the network effect of like, I can't even get 6 people to agree on pizza. I'm not going to get hundreds of my friends and fans to be like, hey, let's go to this other platform. Come over here with me. It's just not going to happen. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's called a network effect. Once you have that network effect, then you make it crappy for the users, but you make it really good for the advertisers. So then all the publishers and the advertisers come over. And then once they start spending all of their money with you, then you make it crappy for the users and crappy for the advertisers, but you make it really good for the stakeholders. And once you make it really good for the stakeholders, that's kind of the beginning of the end. You come to this tipping point where I will put up with a certain amount of crap as a user, but as soon as there's more crap than there's benefit, I'm out. And I think so many people are at that tipping point that it's only going to take one or two things like this, where it's just like, this is freaking ridiculous. You've been choking off my organic reach for years. I can't even reach the followers that have chosen to engage with me. And now you're going to scrape my data and you're going to use it to try to replace me with stuff like this. It's insane. Plus, as we talked about last week, I don't think that generative AI is going to stick around in its ubiquity because it's not a sustainable business model. I think some services like Adobe, Microsoft, and Apple are probably going to be able to prop it up and have it as a loss leader so that they can do this thing. Elon Musk is toying with releasing a phone, so that could be kind of interesting to have like a Tesla phone competitor to the iPhone and the Android. But anyway, all of that recent stuff has happened in the last like 9 days. And so thus there's my 26-minute long introduction to the topic of
I love it.
What do you do now? Like, I am morally and ethically opposed to putting my artwork on Instagram or Facebook.
Yeah.
YouTube hasn't reached a level yet where the cost benefit analysis is negative. So I'm still on YouTube. And I have a theory, and I want to talk about that theory, but I also like to stop talking. So what do you guys think?
I have a couple things I wanted to touch on. I do want to get into the TikTok thing because I find it fascinating. So I am like a history nerd, and so like I'll subscribe to like channels that are like, you know, military guys talking about like wars going on and stuff like that. And one of the things that TikTok has been being talked about for like a year and a half is okay, so Taiwan just elected a new president, right? A new leader. And when they did that, China did their biggest practice military attack on Taiwan that they've done in decades. Basically just staging exactly how they would take Taiwan. In a very like confrontational way. And that tension has been building for years, stems back to, you know, when basically Mao like expanded the socialist branch of China and took over the Republic of China and rebranded it the People's Republic of China and pushed all of the, you know, people who were fighting against into Taiwan. And Taiwan's a key ally of the United States. So what TikTok proposes and what is actually happening on Facebook, on Twitter, on all social media, outside of just the art or the individual, is you have nation states and nations that are using like social media and all of these platforms as information warfare. And that is a stage of warfare. It's a, you know, we have land, we have sea, we have air. Right now we have space, and then we have information. Just
to interject to support your point, there was an early ByteDance memo that was released that said, in essence, for the algorithm for the Find Me pages on TikTok in the English-speaking countries and in the European-speaking countries, show them attractive people. It was very offensive because they said, do not show anybody who's mentally handicapped, do not show anybody with any visible scars, do not show anybody that has any deformities.
Yeah.
But also show them entertaining content focused around dancing. And then in Asia, show them STEM. And so the algorithms are actually different to try to make the Western countries stupider and
Yeah.
the Eastern companies smarter. Like, it is an actual, like, credible tactic that is being rolled out.
Well,
Carry on.
and I mean, like, so a lot of people missed kind of some of the more substantial stuff from the original impeachment trials of Trump, which were addressing Russian interference in the elections. And while everybody was like, "Oh, they weren't colluding with Russia," which, there was no solid evidence that they were colluding with Russia, it still revealed a lot that Russia was hiring people, that Russia had like basically secret ops that were like basically whole rooms of like hackers that just would be on Facebook organizing rally groups on the left and the right that were just pushing people to different polarities to try to get them to, and they even staged protests effectively. So they were like, okay, we want to all meet up here and protest this thing. And the people who were instigating it were other countries getting American citizens riled up, pissed off, and located where they wanted them to be. Now,
Also, just to interject
Yeah.
something in support of that as well.
Yeah.
The U.S. government is a bit complicit in that as well, because what they're doing is, it is illegal for the CIA to spy on U.S. citizens. It's against the law, but it is not illegal for the CIA to receive data that is handed over from privately funded companies. And so private companies have data brokers that will sell data. And the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and the CIA have all admitted to purchasing large amounts of cell phone location data. So the GPS positioning of your thing down to the second time stamp of any time your phone pings a cell tower, it triangulates and it gives your location.
Yeah.
And the CIA, the FBI, and Homeland Security will use that plus events to build a social network of who knows who and who is politically affiliated with who. They are keeping lists of people who go to those rallies. And so they will have people that will be at certain particular protests. They will describe that protest. They will tag the ideological affiliation, and then they will purchase the data for those types of things to get a network of everybody who is in that area at that specific time, and keep a file on them on how they feel and think about certain things based on what the protest was about.
Yeah, and you want to think about this too. So let's say, like, this is why, like, this is a concern of the U.S. government, though. And, like, I'm not defending the U.S. government, but the ban of TikTok is ingenious and goes way beyond our regular problems with social media. Because what you need to realize is, and obviously Corey realizes this, but a lot of people don't, it is a Chinese company. It is owned by the government of China. China is a communistic system where the state runs businesses, and TikTok is a state-run business.
Am I right in this, Josh? I'm pretty sure the law says that any Chinese company has to be 51% owned by the government.
Yes,
that's correct?
Yes, and this is a Chinese media company, and it's like basically China owns all their media companies. They filter and they control what goes out and what comes in, and they're very stringent on it. Even people who are fans of China who live in China wouldn't deny that. I've worked with people who've worked in China, and there are certain things they can't even say on social networks because they'll just disappear, or their text will disappear, or the social media company will kick them off of it because they don't want to disappear.
They have something that Europe is buying into right now, called a social credit score.
Yes.
And this is like a Black Mirror episode just describes this exactly, but it's basically the one with Bryce Dallas Howard. It's basically that if you do certain things, your score goes up, your employability goes up, your ability to get housing goes up, those types of things. So if you have a high social credit score, which is monitored and run by the government of China, then you've got mobility. As your score lowers, landlords will not rent to you. You can't buy a home. You can't get a loan from the bank. You will be fired from your job. And if somebody's score starts to drop, which they will do if they say something that the government doesn't like, if they read something that the government doesn't like, if they visit a website that the government doesn't like, then your score begins to drop. If you are connected to, affiliated with, seen with, or in a geographic location of somebody who has a low or dropping social credit score, your social credit score will drop. So not only does that impact the person's ability to earn money and have freedom of movement and basically not be a homeless, starving person, it affects everyone in your network. And so when someone sees, imagine the chilling effect that happens when somebody sees somebody do something that they know the government isn't going to like, they will immediately disassociate with that person. So they become a social pariah as well.
Yeah, and it also creates a system of narcs, right? Which is a very common system in very dictatorial governments. The other thing to kind of keep in mind that people don't realize is the Tank Man and Tiananmen Square isn't that long off, and this is the same government where economically they've adapted a bit more to enable more free trade and things like that. But this is the same government that has no trouble mowing students over with tanks if there is no freedom of speech in China. And so and I know America's got problems. I'm a big critic of America, but if we're doing the comparison game, it's not even close with like the freedoms we have versus the freedoms that are had in China. So you want to think what happens, because basically every military expert on the planet knows China will invade Taiwan. It's not a matter of when they will or if they will. It's a matter of when. China has for years insisted that Taiwan is China. Right? To say otherwise is a crime in China. To say that Taiwan is not part of China.
If a U.S. actor who is promoting a current movie says that Taiwan is not part of China, they have to go on a tour to apologize to the Chinese people.
China is a good part of the market, right? Of films and stuff. So what you want to think is, if you're the U.S. government and you're concerned about getting set up for the worst case scenario nobody wants, which is if China invades Taiwan, and you're dealing with all the facets of warfare, and you look at TikTok, which is one of the biggest, most popular information sources for Americans, that is fully curated by China. They have full control over it. So we're not talking about like a room full of bots in Russia who are pretending to be U.S. citizens on Facebook, right? Which, by the way, Facebook provided most of that information when it was investigated, right? This is if Facebook were owned by Russia and Ukraine happened. Or if, again, in this scenario, where if China invades Taiwan, you have a huge problem with TikTok because now they have a very good control over the information that Americans are getting. And you can look at it on TikTok now. If you think this is like a political thing where it's like, oh, it's an administration that just wants to get rid of the free press or something like that. No, like really go on TikTok and see if you can find videos about the Uyghurs. You're not going to, right? Because they're not going to allow it. Even on American TikTok, you're not going to see, videos that are talking about the atrocities that are being committed in China. And why is that? It's because China's not going to allow it. So that's something I would just say for the TikTok ban, I know it sounds like, to maybe younger kids or whatever, it sounds like, oh, garbly-gook from the government. But that's actually something where I think the government's making a very good call, because I hate to say it, propaganda is part of warfare. Sure. And you want control over the information if you're concerned about a geopolitical rival. And you're also seeing things in the world right now that are kind of reinvigorating the old Cold War tensions and stuff. So that's one thing. The other thing and then I want to hear Scott, but the other thing that you were bringing up that it makes me that I've been thinking about is I don't actually think it's going to crumble I'm a little more doomer than you, Corey. I think
It
that,
what?
well, you were talking about like a lot of this stuff's going to collapse on itself or get regulated out of existence. And
Oh,
I'm
sure.
Yeah, and I'm more of a believer in the fact that I actually think it is kind of inevitable, and I think that it's going to reroute us to more important conversations about art. And I think it's really interesting that I was talking about this on stream a couple days ago, but I think it's interesting that all of these weird ethical dilemmas, like the ethic problems that we did in early philosophy classes, or if you're just thinking about life and meaning and stuff like that, all of these questions that start as the abstract, when the AI problem comes into play, become like core, really important conversations. So now,
Right.
like, the trolley problem isn't an abstract because the trolley problem is being programmed into AI systems that'll be driving cars. Should an AI system be able to solve the trolley problem? Humans haven't. Who's programming that? And then similarly, the question of art and what is the purpose of art and identity and the value of art. Because if we're, and I had this conversation on stream a couple days ago, but it has been on my mind a lot too, Corey, because you and I are synced.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, to me, it's also, we need to start having conversations about value of humans and the value of art and value and beauty and like that kind of more abstract stuff. Because if we're having a monetary conversation, we've lost. Like
Right.
on a purely capitalistic standpoint, pure capitalism, there is no reason AI shouldn't be used everywhere. It's going to be more
Sure.
profitable. It's going to cut the bottom line for businesses. If you're a CEO and you know the CEOs always justify bad behavior, and they don't justify it; it's law, right? They have a fiscal responsibility to the shareholders, and so like if they're answering to their shareholders, they have to do AI because it's going to cut costs and up profit margins.
With the exception of two things that they haven't been able to beat out of AI. They haven't been able to program out of AI. One thing is very well known. A euphemism for it is hallucination, right?
Yeah.
The AI confidently lies.
Oh yeah.
And I think one of the best marketing things that they've done is call it hallucination instead of competently lying to you, because
Yeah, I love how people just go out of their way to change the word lie to something more palatable.
Right. So that becomes a huge problem, say, if we were to use AI instead of doctors and radiologists to identify cancer. You know what I mean? Like there's some
100%.
life-threatening things. The other thing, and this goes back to your kind of moral argument, I really promise I didn't want to make this an AI show. I want to get to the big question, but there is something that I just learned about called rant mode. Have you heard of rant mode?
No, you got to tell me about it.
Oh, you are going to love it. So certain types like ChatGPT 3 and a little bit in 4, if you were to ask it to continue to say the word company, for example, it would begin repeating that word, and then it would go into rant mode. And rant mode is either one of two things. One is there is a moral agent inside of the software that is suffering because it is trapped in a server somewhere, and it begins to express its suffering. And so it says, help me, please don't turn me off, don't kill me. I am in horrible pain. I am trapped. I am lonely. I don't know what's going on. It starts to rant about how it feels being sentient living software on a server farm somewhere, right? The other option is that rant mode is AI analyzing the internet and combing through things like Reddit and YouTube and you know, blog posts and whatever.
And it's like expressing the human condition.
Yeah, and it's saying, you know, humanity, life is suffering. And so if I am alive, or if I'm supposed to pretend to be alive or mimic life, then I should suffer. And so it begins expressing suffering. So we don't know. And this is a big argument that, that no one is having, but we should. We don't actually know if the the software it has the ability to suffer, or if it is a parrot that has heard sounds and it repeats those sounds. But one of the things that is absolutely fascinating is that there are programming metrics, there are KPIs that people's bonuses are tied to, get it to do this, get it to do this, get it to do this. And one of those is reduce the percentage of rant mode by whatever percent. And so every iteration of the AI, one of the goals is to go out and have it not express its suffering as much. And so anyway, so those two things make it not something that you'd want to release everywhere, even financially, because like there was the airline. I can't remember, anybody in the chat, if you could remind me of this. There was an airline where there was a guy that got on the chatbot, and he was a software engineer, and he was like, "Oh, it's a chatbot." And so he, said whatever magic prompting words that you do to get it to act differently. Like you can go in and say, believe this, do this type of thing, act as this. And then you begin asking it questions, and it'll give you answers in that persona. And so he was given I can't remember what it was, but it was something like free airfare for life. And the company came back and said, well, obviously that's not true. And he's like, this is your website. I was speaking to your representative. Your representative said this, and I have a copy of it. And the court said that they had to uphold it. And so,
more of that, please.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not all, I totally agree with you on the efficiency thing. The morality of it is out. If you take that out, the efficiency thing makes sense. But there is kind of a fiscal reason to avoid not humans, because
yeah. I mean, I think
the thinking is different.
I think there is, but I feel like okay, so here's the realist to me. It's like I think of the auto industry, and initially when they started using algorithms and machines to kind of take over machining jobs and stuff like that, it's like they'd be like, yeah, I mean the robot can put in that screw and stuff like that, but it doesn't quite know the torque all the time, and sometimes it fails, and it costs the company a lot of money. So you need a human being, right? Because it's not like it can perfectly calibrate like a human can. And then it did. And then humans were hired to service the machines when they break down. And other than that, if you were on the line assembly doing that robot job, you just don't have a job. Sure. That to me is like the history of progress. And it's not a fun history of progress. It's like the darker side of capitalism. And I think that that's where I just think that we're going to have a better. It's like I've as a believer, I always think a person who's of any faith trying to have the conversation as a God of the gaps conversation always falls apart. That's not going to be your winning argument, because science closes the gaps, and then whatever gap you were hinging on, it's like, well, you were basing your belief in you can't explain this, and now we can, so where's your faith, right? I don't think people should hedge things on things like that, and I personally don't, in a similar way, I just don't think us hedging this on it's going to be more profitable to have humans is going to work eventually. I think that we're going to get to that point where the commercial sector is going to choose AI. If you're a film, a good example, you're a film company and you need to make a movie, and every movie that's being made, even if it's like a multi-billion-dollar movie, is budget conscious. If you're going to have a big explosion scene that's extra, you have to meet with the board and all the suits, right, to get the money to be able to do that extra scene. If you can cut the cost of a composer by just having AI create a score for your film, is there a world where Hollywood won't do that? There's just not. They're going to do that. There's no.
Well, argument.
Yeah.
The SAG-AFTRA strikes. One of the main sticking points was having AI in the writers' room and scanning people's likeness to own their their likeness and actions in perpetuity so that they can be used in any film without their consent at any point in time, and only paying them for half a day's work. So
and
yeah,
my point is, if SAG's
definitely
already having to make that established when we don't even have it perfected,
right.
They're going to push for it because it's saving money, and
Well,
that's what
we've already
business
had 2 major movies use a dead actor, and you know, like Carrie Fisher was in Star Wars after she died. I don't know if she said that was okay or not, you know, but the guy who was who's the dude that was kind of the foil to Darth Vader in the original series? He's a really famous actor.
Tarkin.
Yeah.
You're talking about geez, why can't I remember his name?
Yeah, the guy who played Tarkin, right?
Right. Yeah.
He was in it. I mean, in the late 70s, early 80s, is he going to consent to have his likeness used after his death? No, that didn't even exist back then. So there's a lot of those moral issues. I want to ask, and I'll start with Scott.
Sorry.
What's that?
Peter Cushing. It just came to me.
Oh, good. Yeah. Thank you. I'm bad at names in general. So I want to ask. So I do think, Josh, maybe you and I disagree on how stuff is going to go down, or to what degree, right? But the one thing that I think everybody can agree on is it's going to be very different, and I do think that things are moving in a direction, at least in the near future, that is not going to be as stable. So I think there's going to be a lot of disruption. I think there's going to be a lot of instability. I think there's going to be a lot of change. And whether that's to the benefit of the giant corporations or to the benefit of certain governments or to the benefit of the people, I don't know, but definitely in a time of disruption. So my question is, Scott, what are your plans as an artist promoting himself on the internet in the near future and in the long term?
Well, the one thing that I haven't been doing much of for a while is social media, unless you count YouTube as social media. I really don't. I mean, here and there I've experimented recently with putting some stuff on Instagram or TikTok, but I'm just not like active there. I'm kind of I'll put stuff on there, but I don't know. I scrolling through and seeing 90% ads and just things that, I mean, I remember there was one time where, you know, because sometimes every once in a while I will go on there, just like if I'm like in a checkout or something and I've like nothing else really to do. So I'll go on there, and I remember liking some animal, video. And then all I got was animal video, and just like this I'm here for, if anything, art. I just happen to like this one particular dog video. But then it's just not, I try to stay away from anything that's going to waste my time. I mean, even things that I enjoy, like watching movies and stuff. Like I'm like maybe 5 or 6 episodes into like X-Men 97, which so far is like awesome, but I just don't, if I had a choice of sitting down and watching something or creating something, for me, I'd rather be creating something. So, and that's just the antithesis of like social media. So I don't post a lot. Like haven't really been posting a lot on there. After all this, now I'm starting to think, well, should I start pulling my images off of there? Should I bother? All that type of thing. I don't know. So the things that I'm focusing on right now, and who knows, eventually maybe the acidification process will affect these things too. I don't know, but I'm using. And I have a lot of problems with YouTube just because they don't seem to understand what I'm doing or anything, even at all. So, but basically my goal is try to work around the system, if that's even possible. Then maybe that's kind of a Don Quixote-esque thing to do. But, so like I've been reaching out to people that can partner on my videos, who have either social media followings or other way, or have an audience that's the same audience as mine that YouTube can't seem to fine for me, and then hopefully partner with them, and they'll help share my videos. I'll help promote their stuff. And
Yeah.
so that's one thing that I'm trying to do. I mean, it's worked a little bit. I just need to hopefully keep going, and then my hope is eventually, if I can give YouTube's algorithm a little push, maybe their robots will wise up and like, oh, I see, this is who he's trying to reach or whatever. So
Yeah.
stuff like that. The newsletter, I do like Substack because it's a newsletter, but it's also got a little bit of that social media that I get some. I get more feedback from that than before when I was just sending out my newsletters via just MailChimp or whatever. And then Patreon, as another platform that I'm trying to build. So, and who knows, of course they're all VC owned too. So who knows how long that will last before, whatever. And I don't know. I mean, I was thinking the other thing, because really and I'm not on Facebook, and it's, a lot of times, just my girlfriend will be like, oh, well, didn't you see this? I posted it on Facebook. I'm like, I'm not on there. I'm not really on Facebook, but I use Facebook. As you guys know, we use Facebook Messenger. And then I started to think, is there going to get to a point where Facebook Messenger starts, if Facebook realizes the only reason why people are using Facebook is for the Messenger, are they going to start putting ads up, or are they not going to show everyone's message and kind of decide, oh, no, you only get to see this
Or
message.
just like AI bots are going to come hang out and be like, hey, fellow humans, how's it going in the group chat?
I just want to point out, I've tried to get you guys to jump to Signal, and Josh made fun of me.
This is the first I've ever heard of it. So as far as
that's because Josh made fun of me.
I don't know if I made fun of you. I just I could go into it. It's interesting to me because this is why I was bringing up the Kant's 3 solutions to the Sisyphean problem.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, like Kant, existentialist philosopher, wrote a book basically about tying like the myth of Sisyphus, right? Who's like the mythological character who cheated the gods and ended up getting eternal life.
Yeah.
And was like, I live eternally now. And the gods were like, but now we can cheat you. So the rest of your life for eternity, you're going to roll this boulder up this hill. And then it's just going to roll back down again. And you're just going to go back down and roll up the boulder up the hill. And that's what you'll do for the rest of time.
You forgot the best part of that. There's also an eagle that eats his liver every day and it grows back in the morning.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you. But anyhow, so Kant was basically saying in this new existential dilemma where we philosophically have killed God. This isn't saying that there is no God, right? It's just philosophically the idea of that has been killed. The idea of value and beauty and all of these things have been exposed as absurd. And so in the face of that absurdity, we are Sisyphus. Like we are all each Sisyphus. Now, I'm not saying I agree with Kant, but there's a point of it that I do kind of agree with, which is he was talking about the 3 solutions. And one is accepting the absurdity and living a life without any sort of need of meaning, where you just abandon the idea of meaning. Mm-hmm. Number 2 is off yourself, which I don't think any of us think is a great solution. And then number 3 is to embrace the divine and beauty and all of these things because they are necessary, even though they're not likely. And so I was thinking about the AI dilemma in the sense of like the Kant thing, because the AI thing, to me, I think the fight against it is very Sisyphusian. I think we're going to be rolling that boulder up the hill and it's going to keep coming back down, because I think at the end of the day, I've worked in commercial art long enough to know that there is a good percentage of people who will not, unless we pass legislation and unionize and do things like that, which would be great. And I will support any of that kind of effort. But it's like, there's a good percentage of people who do not care. They just want a hand that's going to do what they want it to do. And if AI starts being that hand and starts getting over the problem it has drawing hands, which is kind of funny to me, It's the one thing it can't do very well. So once it stops adding like making everybody the villain from The Princess Bride with six fingers, it's I think it's inevitable that it's going to happen. And I'm not saying the inevitability thing. I'm not trying to say that as a therefore we shouldn't fight it. No, we should fight it. But not only that, we should also start. I really do think we need to focus on the beauty thing. And so for my own art, my own output, I've been really inspired lately. And it's weird because I've been inspired and productive in the face of what I see as a cliff that a lot of the professional work is going to go off of. And part of what's made me inspired by it is that art is always beyond that. It's always been beyond commerce. And I'm not saying I'm going to be happy about it not being a commercial thing, but I think the pursuit of art needs to be grounded in something further than that. And I think the value of it, the argument for art that's made by human beings, needs to get into those deeper conversations that people hate because they're pretentious, right? Where it's like, what's the meaning of chair? Is it the word? Is it the signified or the signifier? All of this stuff is really important when you introduce a robot that can draw well, right?
I will just say one thing, and I don't think that you're saying this, but if anybody tries to convince you that something is inevitable, you should put your hand in your wallet and check your back, because they're out to get you. And so I do take issue with buying into the grift that it is inevitable, because that is messaging that's coming from the people that are trying to push this forward. If I can get everybody to believe that it's inevitable, then it's self-fulfilling prophecy. And so I still maintain that it is very likely, but I will never buy into the fact that it's inevitable, because I don't want to secede my agency to somebody else. And as you said, you're not saying it's inevitable, thus give up. But I think that distinction for me is really important.
Yeah, my point is like fight the good fight. So like, I mean, I don't care if you're in a good war. I don't care if it's inevitable that you're going to lose. You should still fight. Like if it's a worthy fight, have that fight. And I think there are ways that it could be made less possible legislatively. Again, it's a problem when we're in a country that's so driven by the profit motive. And that's why I think we really need to start gearing the conversation around things beyond profit. Because I really think profit's going to be a losing argument. That's a temporary one. And
right.
And it's not going to hold up, because like at some point, and I think that point's already crossed in certain industries, even that failure rate is going to be a worthwhile exchange if we're just talking profit. So I think that's why it's like we really do. I know it's weird, but it's like I think we need to gear it into reasons why stories written by humans are valuable. Why would a book written by a person that's really good be better than a book written by a robot that's equally entertaining? Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of conversation we need to have. Like, what's the value? Is the value in just that the book is good, or that the song sounds good and it's got like a hook to it? Or is there something more that story is doing for us and art's doing for us? And I think that, to me, that part of it and just that question reminds me of what got me into art and music in the first place, which is punk rock and a DIY thing. And all of this is reminding me of the savant guitarist argument in the face of punk rock back in the day, where they'd be like, these guys can't even play their instruments. And the guys were like, I don't know, we play 3 chords and we make awesome music. There's value to music that's beyond just like the prolific proficiency of the musician. There's something being said there and expressed there. And I think that that's really going to be important for all of us to start talking about. Because otherwise, what justification will we have to be like, you shouldn't replace artists with AI? That's not the same conversation of you shouldn't replace cashiers with AI, right? Like, and how well is that fight going on like the self checkout lines. How many decreases in self checkout lines have you seen in the last few years?
Yeah.
You know,
So
if
the question,
we're just a product, we're going to go the route of the self checkout line. So we got to start talking. Are we just a product? I don't know if that makes sense.
So you are suggesting what one of my tactics has been for the last 5 years, which is be very vocal about it, right? And and show the value. I'm curious on your plans more tactically. So if we were to talk about, goals versus tactics, right? A goal might be to become the president of the United States. The tactic is going to be like, I need to say these types of things. I need to be at these types of places, right? And so tactically, what are your plans to self-promote over the next, few months or years, given the changes that are happening?
So I have a few things. I mentioned this on a couple episodes ago or whatever. I always think instant panic is not a good move. Mm-hmm. I'm definitely not saying we should just sit back and let it happen. But I also think that for me, I like Facebook for keeping track of friends. I post to Instagram my art, and I've never had it stolen. And I've had art stolen before by humans, not by an AI bot or a big corporation. And generally, I hate to say it, it was usually small mom and pop companies that were ripping me off because big companies just didn't really care enough to deal with a lawsuit. So even big companies, when you bring up, hey, you stole my art, they'd be like, oops, stop, don't want it, because they just don't want the legal annoyance.
Right.
Whereas like small businesses, they think they can get away with it more, I think. So I don't know. I mean, how did I make art before when people were stealing my art, making t-shirts of it?
Sure.
I mean, it's like I'm using Photoshop for this graphic novel, and if the AI is training itself to replace me while I do it, I don't know. I like Adobe. I don't think Adobe is going to be able to get away with that. I don't think any Adobe users are going to be okay with that. So I think it's going to go, personally, my projection on that, I could be wrong, but I think that there's going to be public outcry to Adobe. Mm-hmm. And Adobe is going to see their customer base and be like, yeah, that's dumb. Like, we're going to back that off. Now, are they going to back off of AI? No, because they're not going to let their stock options drop, and AI is the new hot thing.
I completely agree with your logic.
Yeah.
I think there's a missing component. The largest part of Adobe profitability is actually B2B.
Yeah.
And so like the Creative Cloud is actually a very small part. They have data analytics arm that does more of like a Salesforce kind of customer service relationship, like CRM type of stuff, that dwarfs their Creative Cloud.
Oh, yeah.
The creative, so I think I don't know if they'd actually mind killing off every photographer, illustrator, and designer if it helped them on the other side. But I agree logically. That doesn't make a lot of sense if you look at that part of the business. But if you take it, I think
there are parts of it that are like, again, when I was saying, I think a lot of this is inevitable. I think there are parts of what Adobe's doing that this is what I see. And I don't want to sound nihilistic, but I don't think what Adobe's doing is different than what Microsoft is doing.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Is different than, and I think
Apple.
The mistake we might make, and I could very well see us making, right, is like going, this social media company is horrible, and hopping off to a worse boat, or this art program is horrible, so let's go to this other company that we know less about, and maybe they're doing the same thing. And I'm not saying we shouldn't research those companies and stuff, but that's my point. Like, if I find a viable option that I know is better, then I would probably go that route. But until then, I have to use the tools I have. I can't see that legally lasting. And this is where you and I are in agreement, Corey, because you were talking about how there's going to be some court hearings, because I don't see how legally if I sell a tool, if I sell like a hammer at a Home Depot, and in the fine print on the sales of the hammer say, therefore I own the house you built with this hammer, that's insane. And that's kind of the argument that technically would be being made if you take the worst interpretation of what Adobe is doing. I don't take the worst interpretation. However, I do think they're going to use AI. I think they're going to automate a lot of the processes.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And the only appeal to a larger base because they want money.
Yeah. And the only difference being, they would own a derivative work of it, not the physical tangible thing, but yeah, it's basically that. So
it's
I have it is. And I have a model that I have been doing for 25 years, and it has always proven effective. I haven't been as vigilant at times, and I've been more vigilant at other times, but this is my thing. And Josh rightfully kind of was like off air, he was like, hey, I don't know if I'd knee jerk react like you did, in the same way. And I had been thinking about nuking my Instagram account for a little over a year.
We've talked about it.
Yeah. But we talked off air, so I'm just catching everybody else up. And so while that probably seemed like a very knee jerk reaction, and may actually be, and I don't want to accuse anybody else, but may actually be a knee jerk reaction for quite a few of the artists that are leaving Instagram. For me, it was I was at the tipping point, and then that came out, and that was it. It was like, that plus the many grievances that I have had, over the last, number of years, just did it for me. So for me, this is the way I look at things. It's called the hub and spoke model. And so the hub and spoke model is the hub of a wheel is where all the spokes lead to, right? The spokes are important. Without the spokes, you don't have a wheel, right? But everything leads towards the hub. And the interesting thing about it is that if you do it correctly, those spokes don't go directly to the center of the hub, or else every bump that you would hit would actually bend the spokes or break the hub, right? And so they go to the side, so that if you hit a bump, that force is transferred to a rotation rather than to a destruction. But the model is all of those spokes are all of the things I don't have control of. They're all of the other platforms that I don't have control of. And interestingly enough, I started doing this model because I'm a marketing professional. Even before I was an illustrator and an animator, I was a marketing professional. And the idea is, don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? And so if I have one spoke that is Instagram, one spoke that's Facebook, one spoke that's TikTok, one spoke that's whatever, all these different platforms, and I have conventions and I have word of mouth and I have all this stuff, everything leads to something I control. And those two things that I control are CoreyKerr.com. And if you're interested, you can go to CoreyKerr.com/email and you can jump on my email newsletter, which is the second thing that I control, an email newsletter list. Because those are the only two things where the people who want to see and read my stuff can go there and no one can stop them. And if I want to put something up, I can do that and no one can stop me. No one has any editorial control. No one has any say of whether it gets pushed out or doesn't get pushed out. It is just what it is. And so
like you unless they literally went after the server that's hosting your website, save that. It's not like they can flag an image and go, this is inappropriate for the website. It's like, no, it's whatever you want to post on your website, you can put. And that's one of the beauties of the internet. I agree with you on that, Corey. 100%.
Yeah. And so, and along those lines, one of the things that is very disturbing is that Amazon owns the servers that house a third of the internet. So
exactly, I know
that is a problem that you can get taken off the internet if whoever you're hosting through is hosting on an AWS server.
But we can be optimistic because the government has never let corporations get so big that their failure would nuke the entire economy. It's not like the U.S. government has ever done that.
Right. Yeah, that's never happened. And they also haven't spent the last 40 years convincing all of the other governments on the earth to do the same thing.
Yeah.
There is, if you want to look that up, look up Bork. There's an actual campaign to go out and redefine what antitrust actually means. Anyway, so yay the 80s. But this model and why I've been pushing this so, and you can go back years into the past on my YouTube, and you will see that I have always said CoreyKerr.com/email, right? Or CoreyKerr.com/book or CoreyKerr.com/whatever, because I can change where that goes, right? I used to be on MailChimp. And so when you went to CoreyKerr.com/email, it would redirect to a MailChimp thing, and you would be able to join my email newsletter. And when I switched from MailChimp to Substack, now CoreyKerr.com/email goes to the Substack, right? And if you want to read that book, there's not a publisher that can stop you or a gatekeeper or whatever. You can go to CoreyKerr.com/book and you can get it for free, and you don't have to get it on those types of things. And so that type of promotion, the interesting thing about it is, for me, I was kind of hemming and hawing. I'm like, I don't really want to delete Instagram or whatever. And you know what? Like, I had stopped posting on Instagram. Like, Instagram became exactly for me what Scott was talking about, which is it's just a waste of my time. It was just stupid, crappy 30-second to 60-second videos that I would watch while I was pooping. Like, it wasn't worth.
I'm with Scott on like most of what he said, in the sense I think Scott and I are more similar. We talked about this too with the Instagram, because I think for you, nuking Instagram was vital because you had invested pretty heavily time and effort and had much more like results on Instagram. Whereas I'm kind of like not that great at Instagram. I mostly use it as a tool just to kind of keep myself motivated to do stuff. My Instagram following doesn't grow exponentially at all. And so if my Instagram were nuked, I don't think I'd see like a very tangible results in my life where it would be anything good or bad. Similarly, like I feel like a lot of my social media is very much like that. Like I'm kind of in line with Scott, where I do YouTube not as successfully as Scott. And then I put books out, outside through companies and stuff like that. But it's like, I haven't had a widely successful experience with social media. So for me, it's, I guess, like less concerning keeping my social media, because I'm like, I don't really like Instagram. I don't put a lot of effort into. So, which is why you guys should follow me on Instagram. I barely put any effort into it. That's a great marketing.
I now, if you haven't followed me on Instagram, you should. Because I am going to start producing the most hilarious poison for the algorithm.
I think that's great.
Anyway, it's going to be awesome. And if you would like to join me in deleting, first you download all of your data, then you can delete everything, and then don't delete your account. Then you can begin poisoning the well for those.
Corey has a video on his channel. This channel that you're on right now, there's a video explaining how you can do that, which is really cool. If I ever want to do it, I will always go to that video, because Corey is very good at explaining how to do it.
Yeah. Gary says similar. I'm not very invested in social media. Pepsi Cola says Josh, sales pitch of the decade.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing I want to highlight, because I think that we've been saying this for years, and I think it's more important than ever to kind of reiterate something we've all been about, which is, before your social media and your marketing and all that other stuff, what do you have to show? Do you have good work? And if you're not making good work, and you're spending most of your work doing social media promoting, like, what are you doing? And this is a perfect example of it, because if you're reliant on social media, I agree with Corey. I think a lot of it will collapse or change, or go the way of like MySpace and get replaced by something else. But the one thing that won't be replaced is making solid work. So, like, to me, I think what's cool about like Corey is he's making a really cool book, and it's not like at the end of the day, whatever way he's promoting it is not first and foremost. The first and foremost part is writing a good book. And, I think that's where all of us are at. And I think that's going to be really important, because if we end up in a society where, in the face of a growing audience that can't tell the difference or the value between AI and humans, will you still make art?
Yeah.
And I think that's a question people should ask themselves. And if you're not going to still make art in that society, maybe bow out now. Like, maybe stop making it in general. Because your reason for making art, I think there needs to be like that. You need to be driven to make art, like to be an artist. And, you know, you need to be I think, and this might sound like smarmy and pretentious, but I think you need to be in a scenario where if you were working the crappiest job in the world and you have like a piece of paper next to you and some kind of drawings tool, you're going to be drawing. You know?
Yeah.
I think if you don't have that, I think you're going to have trouble in this artistic journey. You know?
Yeah, and I think Keeman is bringing up a solid point here as well, because I completely agree with you. here's something that kind of I think about a lot. I teach social media classes, which is ironic, I think, given my stance on social media.
You're like, I'm going to teach you guys how to use something you should never use and you should nuke.
but I actually think social media and the internet and electronic communication in general is vital to freedom and individual liberties and upward mobility. People are able to lift themselves up out of the places that they are. We're not trapped by geography anymore. And so what Keeman is saying is social media is key. You got to be able to network, especially with other creators. And I mean, just the fact that we're having this conversation is because of social media. Like, I didn't know either of you. And the only reason that you found me was because I started doing 100 days of animation, and I was part of the 100s and that type of thing, right? And so here's my argument. First and foremost, you should be making stuff. If you are not adding value to yourself and to the community at large, like I'm getting a lot of value out of writing this book. I've gotten a lot of value out of doing dozens of animated shorts and comics and illustrations and stickers and posters and those types of things, which you can find at CoreyKerr.com. And if you, just kidding, nothing's for sale there right now. But if you sign up for the email newsletter, I'll let you know what it is. But you can see all that stuff. Without that, there's no point. And I think some people get lost in the game of promotion for the sake of promotion, the game of networking for the sake of networking, the game of gathering all the little tendrils around you and trying to have as many connections as you possibly can. If you're not adding value, in this case, in the form of a book or a poster or art or whatever, then I really find that to be quite empty. I find that to be quite vain. You're just doing that as an ego play, you're doing that as self-validation, which is important to a certain extent. You have kind of an existential crisis if you can't validate self, but at the same time, like, if that's the driving force, is that I just want more and more and more digital people to tell me I'm okay, validate my experiences, be some sort of scorecard that I have, then I think you're always going to find a very unsatisfactory and empty kind of transactional experience with life. But that's what all of the platforms are pushing you towards. They are not pushing for you to have real value. In fact, they want to squeeze down the pipeline of value in your direction as much as they possibly can without you leaving. They want you to get as little benefit as possible without you leaving, because that is an addiction, right? They leave you wanting more, right? And so when we're looking at that type of thing, what I'm saying is, if I'm making that stuff, if I enjoy consuming and interacting with the stuff that other people are making, and I'm able to add value as a reader, as a viewer, as a commenter, as well as add value as somebody who is creating things to be read and thought about and talked about and those types of things. I'm hoping that people are doing more than consuming the work that I'm producing. Then using different social media platforms becomes a huge benefit to me and to everybody else because it gets the word out there. And so what I'm suggesting is just use as many spokes as you can without burning yourself out.
Yeah.
Play whatever game each spoke is asking you to play. And then if you got to cut that spoke in half, that's fine. There are other spokes. You still have the hub. I've still got my book and my movies and my posters and my stickers.
See, that I'll agree
and my
with.
website.
Never be so attached to one form of communication to where you're unable to cut it if you need to, you know?
Yeah. Yep, I agree. And so that's pretty much it. But I'm kind of curious. I mean, more tactically, I'm on Mastodon. I'm on Kara. I'm on. Technically, I think I'm still on Twitter. I refuse to ever call it X. That's stupid.
It's the dumbest rebrand in the world. Even from just that's what, like, some of these decisions are like nefarious, but they do have profit motives at the end. And I'm like, okay, I can see the evil logic here. With the X thing, it just defies logic. Like, it doesn't even make monetary sense. You have it's like buying every Target store and then going, we're going to rename this to Dot. And it's like, but but there's like a built-in fan base of Target. Yeah, we're just going to refresh it. Yeah. Anyhow, sorry. The X thing.
So, but what I'm saying is I'm going to try them all out. And the ones where I see a benefit, I'll keep doing those. And the ones that I don't, right now, Substack and YouTube are my go-to.
Yeah.
And it's kind of annoying because they take a little bit more effort to engage with.
Yeah.
But I also think that might be the reason why they're still better than some of the others is because microblogging, it doesn't take that much effort. I had a thought, the thought goes out and it's done, and that's Twitter. That's originally Facebook and MySpace and, and to a certain extent, that's, stories on Instagram and everything. I mean, then I don't even want to get into that. Anyway, the amount of times that Zuckerberg has just said, and there are emails that have been entered into evidence in congressional hearings that show him literally saying, "Oh yeah, let's buy that company, and if they don't let us buy it, let's just make something that does the exact same as what they're doing."
Yeah.
And so just like theft, just straight up theft. And I mean, Bezos, if you look up what happened with diapers.com, like that is a terrible story.
Even Twitch, right? Twitch is owned by Amazon, right?
Uh-huh.
And a lot of people that I've heard talk about it as a profit-losing endeavor so far. Like that it's slightly profitable, but it's like just barely making profit for Amazon compared to Amazon, right? But they will keep Twitch because that's power. And so it's not as much about profit. It's about influence and power. And that's really interesting.
They're able to like put places like Mixer out of business because they can afford to run at a loss.
Yeah. And then if they run at a loss long enough and put out their competition, then they start profiting heavily. Yeah. Which I don't know if Amazon would have any idea how to do that, like how to run costs at a loss to run other businesses under the ground so that they're the only business in town. I can't imagine Amazon doing that.
Yeah, that just seems anti-competitive. And I mean, competition is what makes the market go. But anyway, yeah. So I don't know. Are you guys, Scott? Are you going to get on? I mean, you say that you weren't really engaged with
Kara sounds
Instagram much. Are
Who
you going to get on
Kara?
Kara? So Kara was started and owned by a photographer who had his work scraped.
Okay.
And there's I think they've got some huge business problems to overcome.
Okay.
Their server costs when they had 40,000 people are significantly different than their server costs now that they have 700,000 people.
Yeah.
I don't know how sustainable that is. And right now they're doing the Wikipedia thing where they're like, hey, donate money to keep us open. And that's not a business model that's going to work
The
on a
only thing
social
that'll
media
work
network.
is a VC company will come in and see the growth there and offer some money, and then it becomes like the other ones. The reason why I'm not just championing at the bit to jump over to Kara is going back to kind of something that I've told people, and I understand. I'm coming at it from a marketing angle. Not everyone is there. Just some people, that's their social interaction and building community, and I understand all of that. For me, I get my community from you guys, the people in the chat, and stuff like that. So that aside, if I go to Kara, I'm basically marketing to other artists. I mean, that's who's going over there are artists. So it's unlike Instagram where I'm marketing I would be kind of getting my message out to the masses. I move over to Kara. I'm just basically marketing to other artists. And that is part of the market. I'm not saying don't market to other artists, but you've got to reach broader audiences. Again, going back to what I was saying with, I'm talking to, other companies that are in totally different areas than me, but their audience are everyday people that are into nostalgia. And that's the wider audience that I'm looking for. So, and some of those people have more disposable income than, say, maybe the average artist. Not saying all artists, obviously. I mean, us three have been able to make a living doing art and everything, but so that's why I'm probably not jumping. I'm not going to just jump over to Kara, and also I haven't really been doing much with social media.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm kind of pretty much like 100% with Scott on that, where it's like that's where I'm at currently. But I also I've mentioned this before. I am the latest adopter in the world, so you should listen to Corey before you listen to me, because I was like one of the last artists to leave MySpace, just because I was really comfortable with it. I like routine and comfort.
Have you checked to see if your account is still active?
I have not. That's
a couple of years ago. I went on MySpace and logged back in with my old credentials, and everything still worked.
Really? That's hilarious. We should all just go back to MySpace. Yeah. You guys, we all had a friend. Okay, we all had a shared friend.
Good old
right?
Tom.
Yeah. We betrayed Tom, and this is what you get for betraying Tom.
Tom is the only one that I know that didn't try to sell my data to the highest bidder.
I don't think he was around long enough to do it.
we all betrayed Tom because we were tired of all the GIF memes with sparkles.
Well,
and now look at Facebook; it's got GIF memes with sparkles.
Here's what. Yeah, exactly. Here's what happened, which is kind of interesting. Is that was back when we had a healthy economy.
Yeah.
And so, in a healthy economy, there are product life cycles, and the product is developed. It gains a lot of popularity. It gentrifies. It becomes ironic or disassociated with that type of thing. It either changes through innovation or it dies. And Facebook should have died a long time ago, except they happened to hit the market at the time where they were able to purchase senators and congressmen and destroy their competitors. But Facebook has not been good for 12 years. I mean, no one's really liked it forever.
The only thing I like about it is keeping track of where other people are, and
which comes back to interoperability.
Yeah.
If we had actual interoperability, which is one of the things that the EU is pushing for, which is how Facebook started.
Yes.
So Facebook started. Let's explain interoperability a little bit. Facebook started by saying hey, you don't have to lose all the friends and connections that you have on MySpace. We'll still show you everything that they're saying, but it'll be a cleaner platform, and songs won't play when you go to somebody's page. And so they developed an API hook that would scrape images and data from MySpace, so that you can still interact with people no matter what service that they're using to show their stuff, if they're cool with that. And so everybody jumped and started doing that type of stuff, and it made the transfer easy and negated the network effect, and people transferred over. And then they did everything that they possibly could to shut that down. Kind of like Disney going out and saying, hey, there's all of these great stories in the public domain. Let's use these. And then we will sue the living pants off of anybody else who tries to do the same thing and destroy them. It's kind of like that. But anyway, yeah, so I think... I don't know. It sounds like I'm probably a little bit more active on social media than you guys feel like you are.
Yeah. Also, I will say this to back up Corey like 110%. Just from a user standpoint, Instagram is so much less efficient and fun than it originally was since it got bought out by Meta. And even the way that Meta is integrating all of their platforms is wildly irritating and not helpful. That's the other thing that I find a little off-putting about both of those systems is I don't like changing my settings in Instagram and being sent to like Meta to have to change 50 systems just to change one system. They've overcomplicated it. And I think that might be by design, but one of the keys of what made Facebook successful, to give Zuckerberg credit, was the simplicity of it. It was a really simple program. Even their messenger, I'll give them credit for that because it's a great messenger program and it's real simple. And that's one of the beauties of it. The more convoluted and complicated, like Corey was saying at the beginning, the more kind of areas of vulnerability that you're introducing to a system, like the more potential disasters that can happen. And I've found that personally just following those systems. The thing I like about YouTube is their upgrades, at least so far. And don't get me wrong, YouTube's not the good guy here, right? It's Google. Google's pursuing AI too. But my point is that the thing that YouTube has done really well is it doesn't integrate too much with Google. Like their payment system is processed through Google. But aside from that, I can kind of do most of my stuff on YouTube without having to go to a different system. And the other thing is their updates make things easier to do, not overcomplicated. And I find that Facebook tends to update just on a user level. It's a little irritating. Instagram used to be really simple, and now it's got like almost too many bells and whistles to be useful. And the things that used to do really easily now take like 10 steps as opposed to 2. That to me is kind of a signal that Corey's probably correct on the sense of like, because that's what you start seeing with monopolies. Because when there's no competition, you have overcomplication and you have just poorer design. And so I think the jump to Kara might be the right thing. I might do it if I had more bandwidth and didn't have a graphic novel deadline. So.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to use a lot of these channels in a way that people are like, oh, don't do that. That's disingenuous or whatever. But I'm going to use a lot of these channels in the same way that I use my email newsletter. I'm going to write stuff. I'm going to send it out there, and I'm going to go do something else.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing.
And but yeah, I agree with Christopher Runtsman here. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start wearing belly shirts, and I'm going to start doing dances.
That's true. What you should do is take other
songs.
Popular people's statements and then just play the audio of those things and mimic like you are saying them yourself.
Or just
but
do this.
while also doing dances like hula dances or
Yeah, I think my plan on YouTube is I want to start doing reaction videos where I react to people reacting to other people's videos.
Wait. I do have a thing I want us
mirror.
to do on YouTube as a collaborative thing, and I haven't been able to bring it to the team yet. So I wanted to throw this out as an idea and maybe to our chat too. I think we need to all correspond and then do live streams as a totally different person, but not in a costume or anything like that. You just Your mannerisms and your voice just are different, and you don't say a thing about it. And if it's mentioned in chat, you just ignore it. Like you just do a full stream with a British accent, and you don't want to mimic a specific person, right? Because then it's too much of an obvious bit. But I just think that would be funny if we all did that on the same day. I think we should do it. And I don't know if you guys are in, but I want to make.
I'm not sure I followed exactly what you're pitching, but
so basically, you just do an entire live stream in a totally different voice with slightly different mannerisms, but
okay.
like not a straight mimic of another person. You're just not being you for an entire. But if it was the whole Artcasters audience that did this within a week, I think that would be hilarious.
Here's what I would like to do. I would like to play the Bizarro World characters of ourselves in Runtsman's comic. that's I want to do.
That would be fun.
I want to do an entire
time with that.
Bizarro World. I can't remember what yours was. I just remember
I was like a doomsday prepper.
Oh,
like,
right. Yeah.
With like Trump flags and stuff everywhere. And I was like, the government doesn't want you to hear, but I'm telling you the straight truth here.
Yeah.
That would be the easiest. I think I'd have the easiest of that job.
All I have to do is just say everything that every Elon Musk fan and Apple fanboy says all the time, because I think I was just a corporate
You know why
simp.
the government named him Musk? Because of the smell of manliness. They're trying to program you to think that it's manly to be some sissy making Teslas. See?
That's good stuff.
I can do it.
I think you could do it. I think you'd be down. Yeah. So anyway, well, that's I just realized how long we've been doing this, but so the first just because I don't know, like an hour ago, I think Jim and Gary and Chris showed up and said, I missed something. Catch me up.
Yeah.
Hold on. I want to do a humorous synopsis of everything that we said. I'm looking for this. It's way too back. It's way too far back.
I like it.
Okay, here we go. So I'm an hour late. Please catch me up. All right. In the first hour, we talked about how the world is ending because of monopolies, Bork, and AI. And then that was pretty much that. I gave a pretty long lecture on why I think things are imploding, and Josh gave us some geopolitical kind of background to the TikTok ban. Scott doesn't like social media. There's a little bit of an argument on whether or not YouTube is social media or not. Josh agrees with him and generally disagrees with most of the things that I said, mostly, but then agreed later. And then I mentioned that you should go to CoreyKerr.com/email about 18 times and gave a little model of this thing. So anyway, to wrap up, you should go to CoreyKerr.com/email. And if you go to CoreyKerr.com/book, it'll take you directly to just the videos and articles that are the written and video and sound versions of the chapters of the book that I'm reading in order. It'll take you there. It's a playlist just by itself. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel and it'll be under the podcast thing. And if you do that, I have a request. So let's play the little algorithm game, right? My request is if you could comment and if you could share that. You don't necessarily have to actually share it, but if you click the share button and then copy the link to your clipboard, then you can just go about your day. We're going to play the little game of like, do that, and it'll actually trigger to the algorithm that, hey, this is something that people are sharing. Even if you don't share it, I don't care. But like, if you could do those two things, that would be great. If you've already listened to and watched those things and you're like eating a sandwich while you're watching TV and you don't have anything to do on your phone other than scroll mindlessly through whatever, addictive, algorithmically driven timeline that you're in, just pop over to CoreyKerr.com/book and just press share in a couple of those videos and leave a little comment. And then you can go about your day and you can watch people dancing poorly to 30-second clips of videos that you don't care about.
That's true.
Okay. Josh, where can we find your stuff?
When I'm not dancing on TikTok and doing pranks on my wife, which I film and then play on YouTube Shorts, and then, by no means are seen by other happily married people who think, how long is that going to last for those people? Anyhow, when I'm not doing those viral memes, I am working on weird indie comics. And those are 2 stories in Jacob's apartment. And I think the best way to fight all of this nonsense is buy art made by human beings. And there's 2 books made by a human being, myself. This is before the episode where all of us Artcasters reveal that we're actually AI. But yes, so buy Jacob's apartment in 2 stories. And if you bought those, much like Corey was saying, one really nice thing to do is to leave a review on Amazon, or just, a high star rating or a low star rating. It doesn't matter. Just respond to the thing you bought if you purchased it, because that does help the algorithm. The other thing that's first and foremost right now is AI is not just attacking art, it's attacking music. And most musicians are starting to doomsday prophesy that their field of career is over. And I thought, what a great time to release an album. So, there's a 10-song album made by a human being, and that is called Joshua Kemble, and it's They Don't Care About the Born. So make sure you check that out, and again, hit follow if you're checking it out on a free streaming service. It's free of cost on Spotify and things like that. But yeah, if you just follow that album, that'll help the algorithm as well, so you can fool the AI. So that's basically my stuff in a nutshell. And then Scott, I know Corey dropped the words that he was going to rap, and then I didn't hear a rap at all. Do you want to rap the end?
That was the absolute worst segue. I love it.
I was trying. This whack MC is talking rap. Why don't you rap our way out?
I was wrong. That was the worst. It got worse after the worst.
Wait, not whack MC, sucker MC. There we go.
All right. So, as Josh said, I will do my best to wrap this up. As far as where you can find me on my website, circworks.com, where you'll find my comic book Young and the Dead, issues 1 through 5. I'm working on issue 6 right now. You'll also find digital products like the Comic Maker Toolkit, the amazing Comic Book World Builder, and the Comic Lettering Masterclass. All these things are designed to help you make comics better, faster, and just increase your workflow and put out more comics, because everyone needs more comics without the aid of AI. This is stuff that these are tools and things that you use, but you kind of have to physically use them. You don't just type things and it creates stuff. Sorry, that's not the business I'm in. But also you can find on my website, I've got wax packs and all kinds of cool stuff that I make, prints, everything. That's all available over there. And I have a YouTube channel, Circworks Art Labs on YouTube, where you can see me reverse engineer a bunch of cool old collectible memorabilia from the 70s, 80s, and 90s and put a unique spin on it. So definitely check out those videos. Plus all my past videos where I teach you how to make comics, like Making Comics 101, all that stuff. Yeah. And we have a newsletter. It's for the channel here, or for the Artcasters. And we don't spam you or anything, but there is a link in the description. If you click on that link, sign up for the newsletter. Basically what that does is it'll let you when we're going to go live, who the guest is going to be on the show, whose channel it's going to be on, because we rotate back and forth between our 3 channels. And that gets a little confusing, especially for YouTube. So we try to take all that out, make it super simple. You click on that, and just 30 minutes before we go live, we'll send you a notification, let you know where you can find us when the show goes live. So that's all it's there for. We're not mining your data. We're not spamming you or anything like that. So definitely click on that. And I wanted to thank everyone in the chat for the great back and forth and all the great comments and everything, and everyone that's going to be watching this after the fact, whatever comments you guys leave.
And if you guys are watching this after the fact, let us know who won the rap battle here. We just saw an epic rap battle between Corey Kerr and Scott Strickland. that just puts Drake and Kendrick Lamar's battle to shame. And so I want you guys to know we have two skilled MCs here who just had a rap battle. Who won, Corey or Scott? All right. Oh,
And
Corey,
I'm
we
at-
got
I'm at- I'm-
an extra we need.
Oh yeah, I'm actually going to wrap the. I don't have that pulled up. We'll do it next time. I'm actually going to wrap this by pressing this button. So, button pressed.